Welcome to Not Just Ads, the show where B2B brands discover how creator-led content drives pipeline, builds trust, and grows long-term brand equity. Each episode, we speak with business leaders, founders, and creators who are defining their categories. I'm your host, Marcus Sherwin, and this is the Creator Economy for B2B. Hello and welcome to today's show of Not Just Ads, the Creator Economy for B2B. I'm delighted to be joined by Andy Crestodina, co-founder, chief marketing officer of Orbit Media. It's an award-winning digital agency based in Chicago. 2 decades. Andy has been in the business, I believe, 24 years, and he's guided thousands of businesses in their digital strategy, SEO, content marketing, website optimization, analytics. And also more recently, obviously, the use of AI as well in terms of how they can boost their business performance by leveraging AI. He's also an author of Content Chemistry, the illustrated handbook for content marketing, and regularly delivers keynote. Great, you have the book there. We'll put a link to it as well in the show notes. Okay. And he's been a keynote speaker at a number of different events. We shared the stage a couple of years ago in Iceland, and all the speakers and the audience that were there mentioned that his part was one of the highlights of the show. So I always enjoy talking to him, and I think people listening today will learn a lot from you as well. So Andy, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Marcus. I'm glad to be here. And that was a great trip. I will always remember that. Yeah. That was really special.
Yeah, it was. It was a great trip. Yeah, I'd never been to Iceland before, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's it's a few years ago now, but it was. It was really good.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks again for joining us. I'd love to just get your feedback in terms of you're at the forefront of content marketing for over 2 decades, building Orbit Media into a trusted voice in the industry. Some people tuning in would be senior leaders in marketing, CMOs, B2B founders as well. One of the things now is in terms of how the landscape has changed is a lot of pressure to prove ROI in the short term. How in a content side, how does that play in, do you think? And how, when you're advising companies, how do you get them to kind of play that balancing act of like delivering on the short term, but also investing in the long term so that's sustainable growth as well?
One of the hardest parts about getting people to invest who have never been on the other end of a successful program is in getting them to imagine what life would be like with a steady stream of qualified leads. People that have never seen it can't even believe it. Like, they're skeptical. Like, yeah, that sounds good, but can I reduce the cost of this somehow? Like, I'm talking about millions of dollars in demand we're going to generate for you. Like, can you do it smaller?
Yeah.
There's CFOs and CEOs that don't really appreciate it because they've never stood under that waterfall of MQLs. So that's hard. I think that data can guide them and help them understand better what the opportunity is. I think FOMO is actually a better way to convince an executive, just to show them the visibility and nothing else of their competitors and show how they're just not in the game. Ultimately, attribution is hard because B2B is a decision with multiple touches. The person has high consideration. There's also multiple decision makers. There's also a long sales cycle. So the smart content marketer starts from the bottom of the funnel and creates content that can be used immediately by the sales rep to follow up on calls. That's content that answers the top sales questions. If you don't know what those are, or if sales and marketing aren't aligned, you're missing a giant opportunity. But in the end, I mean, the best marketing data is in your CRM because that has deals and proposals and MQLs. But even at a distance, I can see, as long as I have access to analytics, I can see whether or not leads are flowing through a domain. It takes 3 minutes to check. It's not hard. It's all right there. As we speak, millions of people are looking for B2B services and they're landing on websites and they're turning into leads.
Yeah. It's really interesting as well. How do you find when you're trying to get that buy-in, the initial thing of like kind of the process of saying, okay, look, we're just targeting this audience and we're trying to pick up leads, and it's going for this low-hanging fruit, people that are in market, whereas, B2B buying cycles are quite long, so not everyone is always in market. So you kind of need to make that expansion. If you're looking at like kind of KPIs or early indicators of they should look at that means that they're on the right track, what would you normally say to them to kind of like when they go from that transition phase of like what they've been doing before versus waiting and kind of seeing that this takes time to build up and have impact, what are early indicators that they should look at to see that if it's successful or not, or that they're on the right track?
I think that properly stated marketing should begin from the end of the process and go backwards. So look at the contact form. If there's any confusion or friction, fix that. You'll generate more leads immediately. Then look at the calls to action that bring people to the contact form. If those are vague, generic verbs in those CTAs, you can fix those and improve lead generation immediately. Then look at going backwards up through the funnel. Then look at the sales page and ask, does this sales page, maybe it's the home page, fail to answer any important questions for this prospect? Or does it fail to address any critical objections of this prospect? Or does it fail to support any of these marketing claims with evidence, testimonials, case studies, statistics, award logos, badges, clients you've worked with, as seen in press mentions? So doing those things first, I think, is fixing the mousetrap and then go make cheese. So the quick wins are foolish to ignore.
Yep.
Then you move up toward the middle and then there's one other step there, because you said it perfectly, Marcus. People are in different stages of consideration. And therefore, in search, which is still a massive source of visibility, people are overstating the impact of AI, and there's Google's still 300 times more popular than ChatGPT. People are searching for things, answers to questions. People are searching for combinations of phrases that indicate the vertical plus the geography plus the specific service plus the... So you need to make pages a set, not just one, a whole set of search optimized, conversion optimized pages. And then Google sort of segments your audience for you, and people land right on that page. Each of these pages has to stand on its own. You can't say, oh, I've got strong case studies. They're mentioned on the home page. The home page is just one of your landing pages. You got to fix these other, search optimized pages, build out a whole section or many sections. But then, yes, I think really partly what you're asking is about the power of content at the top of the funnel, more of a brand play. Yeah.
Yep.
That has uncertain outcomes. You need to get used to lack of attribution and ambiguity. You need to measure your activity, not just the performance. So go big, do weird things, do big things, publish research, which you know that we do that, launch a LinkedIn newsletter, have an active webinar program, commit to 8-minute videos on YouTube every 2 weeks. You have to do something else so that people are at least somewhat aware of you by the time they land on your site. Then the conversion rates are, of course, much higher.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense as well. I guess for the top of the funnel, because there is that level of like what you're doing is you're reaching a broader audience, but there is a level of like unknown of what's going to resonate and so on. So it has to have like a level of experimentation there to see what's going to work and so on as well. I'd love to talk to you a little bit then in terms of B2B and like the actual messaging, like you mentioned here about like pain points about what the customer's pain points are in terms of like what notes are from the sales team and the CRM and so on. How do you approach it in terms of if you're looking at pain points? Do you think a lot of companies are kind of talking about the same things and it's difficult then to stand out? Or if they actually go deeper with their customers, there is unique content there that can be useful? Or like, how do you, when they come to you and they say, look, everyone kind of sounds the same, we want to sound different. Like when somebody says that to you, I'm sure they do maybe, but what do you say to them?
Well, we can't assume that your audience is consuming all the content out there. So even if something's a popular topic or an important thing or the flavor of the day, it may still very well be worth publishing. Put a little angle on it, give it your point of view, take a stand on it a little bit. I also think that if you worry that your blog looks like everyone else's blog, you need to be publishing on other websites. Who are your publishing partners? Where are you a contributing author? What is your PR strategy? Where are you guest posting? Which trade publications and associations are you partnered with? That makes your content immediately more visible. And those editors are always looking for content and love unique points of view. But it's actually not that hard to differentiate, I think. You can simply, and here's an AI trick, you can ask AI what content has not yet been published in your vertical, and it will tell you. Or ask AI what your prospect does not yet know about their category, and it will tell you. There are fantastic ways to do gap analysis on an entire industry for content strategy today. But in the end, there's two formats that are always highly differentiated and immune to AI disruption. And those are new original research, where you're publishing new statistics, making your domain the primary source for new information. You've got it. It's yours. You own it. No one else has that. You become the primary source. And then also, it takes guts, but I encourage everyone to at least consider it. Take a stand. What are
Yeah.
people doing wrong? What do you think will happen that most people disagree with? What questions are people afraid to answer? I could give you a million examples of interesting counter narratives, but the brands who do that become very memorable. And in the end, your goal is to be top of mind.
Yep. Yeah. As well, what you mentioned there about AI and the thing about like kind of contrarian views and taking a stand and so on. How do you see AI playing? And we'll put the link to the report on the show notes as well. You did a fairly extensive report about asking marketers how they're using AI, and the results were really interesting. How do you see it playing out at the moment in terms of lots of people are obviously using it. It has, huge amount of benefits. But there's also then like the other argument on the contrarian view that there's a lot of AI slop. People just like copy and pasting what they put into a chatbot or in an LLM and posting it and so on.
Hmm.
What do you see marketers getting right versus marketers that like maybe that they're kind of giving a bad name to the trade in terms of like both sides of the argument with AI?
Well, there's always been a flood of low quality content. The cost of
Yeah,
content has always declined. And it really doesn't affect most of us because people who just write a short prompt, copy and paste a response, publish an article, are making an article that mostly shouldn't have been written anyway because your prospect can just write that same prompt. That is not what works. It wasn't what worked when people paid Fiverr freelancers to quickly create articles, or people who use SEO tools to give them the entire outline and then just sort of, do a bunch of automated, keyword
yeah,
stuffing. So it really is not very concerning to me because if you have a little bit of a brand and you've built a little bit of an audience and you know how to take a stand and you know what your audience talks about and cares about and you can talk to them directly through channels like, email and webinars and, without an algorithm in the middle, it's perfectly fine. I'm not no concern at all. So yeah, it is all it is just one more example of many. We've been doing this a long time, where the differentiated brands and content programs just get farther ahead. It's an
yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, and I guess as well, if you know your audience as well, or you know your customers as well,
Hmm.
you're close to them. You know what the pain points are. If you're speaking about that authentically, or as opposed to using some LLM, they're going to know the difference as well.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just, they're smarter than you think. People, B2B, we're often selling to experts and they're scanning for answers and not just AI slop, but I think overly branded, overly clever web copy that just says in a very watered down way the basics of sort of what industry you're in. Most websites are terrible. Most homepages are weak. Most companies fail to add almost any sort of specificity or proof points. So even if it's not written by AI, it's sometimes written by just like a gutless brand manager that can't take a stand or narrow down their audience. Part of what a good B2B marketer does is help those who are not qualified get out of your funnel.
yeah,
You don't want 100% of your visitors to convert. You want the people who are not an ICP to hit the back button, right? So, be specific on your pages who this is for, what the impact is, what problems you solve, who you're not for, why you're different, what the specifics are of the offer, the outcome, and the impact in their life. I think there's always been bad copywriting, and AI just makes bad copywriting faster.
yeah. What do you think has changed then? Apart from AI, you've been in the business nearly 25 years, so you've seen probably, I would imagine, like even when AdWords wasn't even a thing, you were probably
Wasn't.
before that. No, yeah. So you've seen a lot of these trends in B2B specifically. What do you think has changed in the last, say, 5 years? Yeah, maybe you could see like maybe some of the trends that you see, and I guess do you see anything kind of like history repeating itself? I know we see that it kind of like it doesn't
Hmm.
repeat itself, but it rhymes. But yeah, I'd be interested to just get your take in terms of like being nearly a quarter of a decade in the industry of like what are the trends that you've seen that's kind of and what's changed recently in your opinion?
Well, there's been many huge changes to the internet in that time, into digital marketing, into user behaviors, mobile, social, search, AI, short form video, the content marketing in general, the new platforms. I mean, the internet was just totally different. 25 years ago, we made websites with a skip intro button. Broadly, I would say this. What the internet mostly did was it allowed people making buying decisions to do tons of research before they reach out to a company, before they add to cart or before they submit a form. So in the pre-internet era, people kind of had to contact a sales rep. There was phone and meetings and faxes. And now people want to be very, very informed. Our audiences are now going deeper, especially with AI. That's, I think, the biggest change in the user behavior because of AI. People now go much, much deeper into the funnel. And by the time they contact you, by the time they land on your website, they are mostly certain that you're a qualified option for them. That's why conversion rates from ChatGPT are so high. If you haven't seen this yet in your analytics, you should look it up. On my site, it's twice the conversion rate of visitors from search. So with that in mind, you sort of need to, again, create a very informative user experience that helps them understand if this is a good option. You're not the best option for everybody. Help people understand for whom are you the best option and make that a very strong case, even if the person doesn't scroll down. And if you look at a scroll heat map, you'll see like only 10% of people get down however far, and you might be discouraged by that. But remember, AI is reading it all. And when you make super detailed pages that answer every question about who you're good for, who you're not, your strengths, your weaknesses, your qualifications, the pain points you solve for, the job titles, who buy from you, that all gets ingested by the AI, and it helps AI guide people toward you even before they land on your on.
Yeah. What do you think is key then for B2B companies before, like if we were having this conversation a few years ago, it would be, your ranking for Google ranking and so on. Do you think the fundamentals are kind of the same in terms of how they navigate, or are LLMs slightly, they're more advanced and so on, or do you think the fundamentals are very similar in terms of how you would rank previously for a search versus now versus a prompt, or like what are the key differences in your opinion?
Well, SEOs are freaking out because they feel very disrupted. Specifically, they're upset about the click-through rates from organic search results declining. I think that's an old story. I've been tracking click-through rates declining in search results for 10 years. I collect screenshots of Google search results pages, and I could show you some from 10 years ago, and it's like 10 blue links. And today it's like piles of videos and other stuff. The AI overview is just yet one more of those. So that's an old story. So without predicting the future, though, I will say that just based on observation, that the way that people use AI is to help them make a decision, which is different from Google search, traditional search, which is help them find options. Again, AI is going to help them deeper into the funnel in the consideration stage. People are going to go to the web and say, make me a buyer's guide with charts and graphs and pricing information for companies in this category, and it will create for them a buyer guide. So your best chance of being in that is to make sure that you are adding everything possible to AI's training data, and that starts with your site. So yeah, there's all kinds of impact and differences and shifts in trends. I think the user behavior trend is the main one to watch because that's the buyer. We're trying to empathize with them. There's a true story in the life of every prospect, and what are they doing?
Yeah.
So that one, but Google becomes an AI tool, and AI becomes a search tool, and so these things all become hybrid models anyway. But in the end, I mean, if you want to be recommended, not just visible, SEOs want to be visible. AI optimizers, whatever we're going to call that, want to become recommended. So to be recommended, you need to make more comprehensive content and copywriting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess as well of what you say about the CTRs, like over the last number of years going down, if the buyer is more educated, potentially then maybe when they do land on your site, there are more chances that like the conversion may go up. I haven't tested that hypothesis, but that's really just a thought.
I think that's the case. I mean, the average prompt is like 23 words and the average query is like 4.
Yeah.
So what are in those extra 19 words? They're telling the AI more about their problem, who they are, what they're trying to solve for, where they are, what they need. So it is going to not just give a list of brands, but it's going to say which brand is good for what. And you can actually see into the AI training data. Just say, create for me a buyer guide for my industry, make sure I'm included in it, and make a table showing strengths and weaknesses. It'll tell you where AI thinks you're weak and where AI thinks they're strong. And if that's not accurate, your job is to now retrain the AI. Train the AI to be a sales rep for you. That's basically the new job. It is this. It's and SEOs you'd think would be perfectly suited for this, but in fact, SEOs have a giant blind spot, and they often are not conversion optimizers and don't know what wins the sales conversation.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting time to be alive, isn't it? It's like if you look at the streaming from music years ago with a lot of the record labels and obviously the music industry was disrupted, but then you see now that it's kind of changed and obviously big music labels are part of some of the streaming platforms as well. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Great example,
I'd love,
Marcus. The user behavior
yeah,
is the change to watch. That's exactly right.
yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit about Orbit Media, how you grew the business with not really much paid amplification, purely on building content of what you mentioned, but also as well to lean into you and your personality because you have a lot of a presence at keynotes and a number of events. And as I mentioned at the start of the show, your talk in Iceland was one of the highlights. And that's not just me. Many people mention that, but I'd love to talk a bit about how you started and kind of how you grew the business and you being the face of the brand, how that helped grow the business, and maybe you could share a little bit more around that.
Yeah, you could properly state it. Ours is a founder-led B2B lead gen content strategy with no paid channels. So inside that, of course, you have to make a mousetrap, build minor masterpieces of conversion optimized, search optimized key pages. That's in fact what we do as a business. We build websites, and building those pages and optimizing for both search and conversion are key success factors for all of our clients. It's how we grow businesses. So you have to sort of do that first. Otherwise, it's like driving on a flat tire. Like every other effort is bad, because if someone refers you, or word of mouth works, or they clicked on a link on a publication, or you ranked, they land on the page, they're confused, or there's an unaddressed objection, then lead gen is worse. But what we did was I had to figure out search quite early. 2001, I became an SEO. Had to figure out analytics quite early in 2001 also, which was before Google Analytics. When 2007 came along and I began writing articles, I was trained to be a teacher. I was going to be a foreign language teacher. So I got kind of excited. This is just curriculum development. I can do this. Ours is not really a thought leadership program. We're not like taking a stand. Our goal is to just make the most practical stuff. So when there's good feedback, it's like that was useful. It wasn't like that changed my thinking. No, I've written 650 articles. I give maybe 80 presentations a year. It's more travel than I'd like. I make probably 12 or 15 videos a year. I probably should do more of that. I try to be helpful in these ways on shows like yours. Thank you, Marcus. But there are 53 of us, and it's an $8.5 million company. And to do that, you need to generate leads every day. And that means creating this sort of ecosystem of these search and conversion optimized pages, highly differentiated content that attracts links, which creates a high domain authority website, which ranks for the competitive, valuable commercial intent key phrases. And then there's some brand play, like the LinkedIn newsletter, where we just put all of it's a weekly thing. And I work very hard at that and to make things that are more comprehensive than other programs. And somehow it all works out.
Yeah, for sure. It does. It's a great success. What do you think? You touched on it earlier as well. With thought leadership, what do you think it means to you, and also why do you think it gets maybe misrepresented in certain sectors or certain industries as well?
I was at a conference yesterday and had a big conversation about this. I borrow some of Seth Godin's words for the definition of thought leadership, where he says, it's about creating tension. You have to be willing to be wrong, and you can be certain that some people will disagree. So it's a simple standard. If you wrote something or recorded something that no one can disagree with, how to set up lead generation tracking in Google Analytics, that's not really, there aren't like lots of points of view there. Like, this is how to do it.
Yeah.
Click here, it's done.
Yeah.
So my content is mostly utility content. But when you watch other people, they're taking a stand. They're saying, this is good and this is bad. I'll give you there's a million examples. Coffee's better than tea, or, Google's stealing from content creators, or, streaming is better than download. I mean, any point of view, marketers overbuy technology. You could just, every one of those statements probably gave the listener a feeling. That's what's different. So make 10% of that. You don't have to do it a lot. I mean, executives don't love it. They're scared. But it doesn't have to be on a controversial topic. You could talk. I mean, I saw a big argument once about the Oxford comma. People get very worked up about, and then again, there's an AI method. Give me some mundane, almost trivial topics that this job title has very strong opinions about, and AI will give you a giant list. Pick one or two, take a stand, and you'll start a huge conversation without being controversial.
Yeah, no, good tips, very practical. Predictions for the future. What do you think, apart from AI, like, well, you could mention AI as well, but any predictions in terms of B2B in the next, say, 6 to 18 months or 24 months?
I think that there will be long term. I think there will be a trend away from browsers. I think that the web as a user experience will change. I think that people will be talking to AI more and getting recommendations more, just as just in conversations. I think people will become very intimate with their favorite agents and trust them a lot. People are going to trust AI a lot. So I think that websites become far more important in their ability to train AIs. I think PR becomes far more important because it expands your digital footprint and chance of getting mentioned and recommended. I think that there will be, video creators and influencers will have more power in the future because they have audiences that others want to borrow. So get started building up your personal brand or elevating some influencers internally. Those are all very probable, but it's really a tough time to predict. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why we do this stuff, right? It's fun and hard and
Yeah,
weird
yeah,
and uncertain.
exactly. Yeah. One final question that you just mentioned as well about personal branding, and you have a very large following on LinkedIn. You've a well-known personal brand, but you also touched on in terms of people within the organization as well. How do you think organizations look at that in terms of being founder-led, or also maybe you have someone like that's on the senior leadership team? They're maybe not as active, maybe, but there are people within their team or within their organization that are. How do you think companies can lean into that, or how do you think any examples of companies that you see doing that really well?
If you have executives who have job titles like CEO and they're not leveraging the PR benefits of that, then they are wasting part of the value of the job title. That sounds like thought leadership, right? You can disagree with me. CEOs are not supposed to be PR people, but they are. Every CEO, the bigger the company, the more the CEO is more or less a politician. They have to come out. They have to have a point of view on topics. I'm a member of the Economic Club of Chicago, and we have the biggest CEOs in the U.S. come through and present, and they sound a lot like politicians, right? They're ready to take on topics. Not at a much smaller level, most B2B companies. Just by having the CEO title gives you better opportunities to get visibility in PR and Forbes and get on stages and get clicked and opened. So just work with your marketing team to do little interviews and turn that into bylined articles and pitch those to places that it's not hard. It's important. It's a long-term investment. Don't look for ROI from that. Go to the gym, eat your vegetables, and write a guest post. Don't expect to know exactly which of those actions made what difference in your health or your brand. Just do them,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's actually a very good analogy, because I think the brand piece, sometimes it's always like, how do you measure it? How do you measure it? But nobody really asks you, if you go to the gym day on day, what's the uplift, or what's the uplift of eating vegetables?
Exactly.
So it's a very good analogy.
Which of these push-ups is going to make me super fit? We all know that's not how it works.
And if anyone wants to find you, where do you normally post and so on? So we'll leave the details in the notes, but if you could share, where can people find you normally?
Well, on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn is pretty noisy. So the blue button says follow. But if you click on the dots and find it, there's a connect button, and just say, hey, Andy, I heard you on Marcus Sherwin's show. And that way we can hang out and talk. Orbitmedia.com is where I publish first. Everything that I've ever posted anywhere else is on there first. So you can get the latest there. That's a biweekly blog. Also, our YouTube channel is relatively active these days. The book is on Amazon. It's called Content Chemistry. I should be very easy to connect with. I try hard to make myself accessible. So
Great.
Anyone's welcome to reach out on any topic.
Great. We'll leave all the links as well in the show notes as well. Andy, it was a pleasure talking with you today. Thanks very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Marcus.